It's amazing when you see those numbers, it's a lot, but it isn't a lot at the same time. One of the pastors in our church in the conversation was, Job was the most well-known person in the Bible. He had no idea the cosmic conversation that was going to have him lose everything. Yes, he did. So, how secure is it? Even Job. And that's why he's saying, what? Doesn't it go? Yep. Well, I try to get in dry, I just mess things up. Yeah. I understand what you're saying there. They kind of came in the middle, what's fall off from each other?
Oh. I think she wore that shirt so I couldn't copy her. I almost took like some tape and put the numbers on my shirt.
You know, normally they were in trouble. You know who you are.
And that's the one. You know who you are. And you know who messed up.
And if you don't know who you are, but it's interesting. So the first child is you're not using it. It's interesting. And here's one. They're kids. Oh, really? So I think the whole crew is a brother and 13 Jane. It's interesting. One of our daughters, she keeps talking about moving to France. I go, what did you have to do in France? I'm not up in my airplane budget, so I want to see your
That's the budget,
I don't have an airplane budget. And my wife goes, oh, no.
All right, guys, am I on? Nope. All right, everyone, if we can get back in, we're going to jump right in. We got lunch coming next. Lunch, and even more important, the panel. By the way, I do pay people to lie well, so if you want to be on the panel, no, I'm kidding. I don't know if in a church especially it's really good to admit lying and bribing. I don't know if that goes real far. Well, we're going to get away from the numbers a little bit here. I just have to find my clicker. There it is. So now you should be here on relationships and money, purple, pink, magenta, whatever. It's not green, I know that. And we're going to talk about relationships and money. And each one of these modules are going to go in fairly similar order, so you should kind of get a feel for the day here. And as you're getting to sit down, we'll have fill in the blanks, just like we did last time. And we're going to keep it very simple. We're going to talk about marriage and money, singles and money, and kids and money. Marriage and money, singles and money, kids and money. For time's sake, I'm not going to do a 60-second timer on this one, but notice this graphic. It looks the same, but it's a little bit different. The question it's asking is, what I wish I knew. Often we hear things like, I wish they would teach this in schools, which, by the way, I want to say about half of the schools now in the country teach some form of financial literacy. I'm not a fan of Iowa's code. It's just teach something. I wish they'd be a little bit more stronger than this something. But thankfully, 50% of the schools in America are doing something. But I'll commonly hear when I meet with clients, my parents didn't teach me anything, I didn't learn from anything. But what's been fun here is I've had multiple people tell me, my 8th grade teacher taught me this, or my dad taught me this. But I'm curious, is there anything you wish you would have known earlier, especially if we've got some younger folks here, they're going to get to learn a little bit now. Is there anything you wish you knew either now or back then?
I never saw my parents work together toward this goal with money.
Okay, working together, yes. And I'll pick on me. One of the things I wish I knew, and honestly I still have to work through sometimes, is I wish someone would have sat me down and told me how I could have paid for college in cash. Because when I started school is when companies were just starting to do tuition reimbursement. The company I was working for at the time was way different than they are today. They paid 75% of the tuition. And I grew up in rural, poor Iowa with family that didn't have a lot, and I got grants. And for where I was in that layout of that time, I was making decent money for an 18-year-old while going to school. I could have paid for my college cash easy, but no one showed me how to do that. And so I was a student loan debt because, hey, I wanted to be in a rock band, so why not? All right, so let's talk about on the page 2 of the relationships and money section, there's some stats we're going to go through here. The leading cause of stress is money. It's probably not a shocker. Leading cause of stress is money. And money stress leads to health problems and poor relationships. Here is a graphic. It's on your workbook, also on the screen. This comes from Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM. A study was done by employees that had light levels of financial stress and heavy levels of financial stress, and how that affected their health. So take a moment and look at that. So financial stress is a big deal. This is one of the reasons why I love company to companies. I tell the companies, look, you hire me to come in and teach this workshop. They're going to do better with finances. Their stresses are lower. Therefore, they're going to be more productive. They're going to be with you longer, et cetera, et cetera. And then money fights are the leading cause of divorce, as we talked about earlier. So once we get on the same page about money when we're married, it's a big deal. Now, how many of you have seen the movie Fireproof before? It's an old movie, old movie, but that is a great movie. I recommend any movie by the Kendrick brothers. They're all really good. Anyone who saw the first movie, Flywheel? I saw that for the first time. Like, that's a great movie, but wow, you could tell how far they've come in production and acting and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, we have permission to use some of their content today, and one of the content we're going to use is from Fireproof. If you've not seen the movie, I'm just going to give you a heads up. The scene's a little intense. Don't worry, obviously it's a Christian movie, so there's no bad language or anything like that. But I want you to watch this scene unfold, and we're going to talk about it.
What are you doing?
So you left me no pizza?
Caleb, I just lit that candle. I like the way it smells.
Well, I don't. Did you leave me any dinner at all?
I assumed you were eating with Michael.
Does it not occur to you that there are 2 people living in this house and both of them need to eat?
You know what, Caleb? If you would communicate with me, maybe I could have something for you.
Why do you have to make everything so difficult?
Oh, I'm making everything difficult? Seems to me like I'm the one carrying the weight around here while you're off doing your own thing.
Excuse me? I'm the one out there working to pay this mortgage, and I pay for both of the cars.
Yeah, and that's all you do. I pay all of our bills with my salary.
Which you agreed to do. That's fair. Do you not like this house? Do you not like your car?
Oh, Caleb, who takes care of this house? Me. Who washes all the clothes? Me. Who gets all the groceries? Me. Not to mention I'm helping my parents every weekend. You know, I've got all this pressure on me, and the only thing you ever do for anybody is for yourself.
Let me tell you something. You don't know the first thing about pressure.
Whoo! I'd be lying to you if I would say that's never happened in our house. But isn't that interesting? Yes, it's a movie, but I think it's a very accurate movie. Isn't it interesting? Their argument had nothing to do originally with money. But where did it come to? Money. How many times we have fought with our spouse that may not even have been about money, but it became about money. So let's turn the page and learn about communicating. We want to learn how to communicate in our marriage, because if not, we'll be like what Jolene Brown says: without communication, cooperation, and commitment, you can count on resentment, and revenge. So we want to learn how to communicate. And if we communicate well, or if you don't communicate well, we're going to be always fighting about money to and fro. We want to be like that couple. You may not have cheesy smiles and $100 bills wrapped up in nice things, but we want to be able to have better communication. Communication about money is not about selling your agenda. It is about our agenda. When I work with married couples, one of the things I tell them, like if I was coaching my wife and I as an example, I would say something like, we're not going to do it the Justin way. We're not going to do it the Jessica way. We're going to create the Bennett way. Okay? Bless you. So we want to make sure that we are communicating about our money. And that's why when I recommend budgeting earlier, having those weekly communications is so vital. Now, there's a great book. I love reading books. And if you've never read it, have you heard of Zig Ziglar before? Zig Ziglar is known for sales and motivating. Well, he wrote a book called Courtship After Marriage. Really neat book, Courtship After Marriage. And I read the first chapter, and after reading the first chapter of the book, it really got me thinking about, when I wrote this curriculum years ago, 4 ways we can improve our communication when it comes to money. 4 ways we can increase our communication on money. And the first one is forgive. We've got to forgive our spouse, both of the past, present, and future mistakes. And I'm by no means saying that's easy. But I'm going to add something that I've just been seeing in the last 6 to 12 months with my clients, single or married. What I'm learning more and more is people haven't forgiven themselves. So I'm going to include in that, forgive yourself. And if you're human, all of us have made past mistakes financially we regret. But God's grace is good enough to forgive us, amen? We need to be able to forgive ourselves, but also our spouse for past, present, and future things. Humble. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And every time I'm a little out of whack, it's usually because there's pride involved, and I got to get humble. And remember, this is a team sport when you're married. You're doing this together. So come from a place of humility. Now, that doesn't mean come from a place of being taken advantage of or subservient or abusive. By no means are we okay with that, right? But it is about coming from a place of humility. Teachable. Teachable. You don't know it all. I don't even know it all. I'll never forget, I was asked to go to a Dave Ramsey conference years ago, and I was one of the speakers at the event. I'm like, this is great. I get to speak at Dave Ramsey headquarters. This is fun. But I was kind of nervous about going to this because, honestly, this conference was mainly for newer coaches, and I've been coaching for a while, and if I'm honest, my pride meter was kind of starting to grow a little bit, going, what am I going to learn from these people? This one guy said some really wise advice. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. How long have you been a coach? 3 weeks. Oh. And right then and there, I'm like, wow. So be teachable. And lastly, unity. Be unified. And I'm going to say something interesting. When I meet with my clients who are married, I tell them, okay? I tell my clients when they're married, I would rather be you guys unified and disagree with my recommendation than follow my recommendation, but be in disagreement. Doesn't mean you can't be in disagreement to get to a place of agreement, but I'd rather you guys be unified. So forgiveness, humble, teachable, unity. As I was putting this material together years ago, I had a pastor from a different church who does a lot of marriage counseling, and I had him look over the material. And he liked the words, and he said, really emphasize forgiving. Really emphasize forgiving. That is the big piece there. I'm going to give you guys an exercise. You only take 10, 15 seconds. I want you to circle either forgiveness, humble, teachable, or unity. Which is the one you need to work on right now? If you're honest with yourself, which is the one that you need to work on? And if you say none, humble is the answer. Any bold ones out there willing to share which one they circled? Don't have to share, but anyone bold want to share? Okay. Well, for me, what ends up happening is I focus on one, and then as I focus on that one of the other ones gets out of alignment, and then I got to go back to that one. So we always can improve on all of them for sure. So what are some things we can do to break down barriers? Because again, money can be a very sore and touchy subject in a marriage. So what are some things we can do? Number one, pick an environment that is conducive for good conversation. We are creatures of habit. And one of the things I've discovered is, for some couples, is the money fights almost happen all in the same place. It's weird, and it doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but it really does change the tenor of the conversation. I had this one couple that I was coaching years ago. I'll never forget it. They kept talking about, they fought about money in the kitchen all the time. I kept hearing kitchen over and over again. About second or third session in, I'm like, do you guys fight anywhere else about money? Like, actually, we don't. Then don't talk about it in the kitchen. Find somewhere else. Or if you or your spouse or both can get kind of heated, maybe go to a coffee shop. Or go somewhere, or a library, or somewhere where there's a few, where you can have some buffer, but go to an environment where you can talk about money and not get everyone riled up. Now, your phone, the blank next, focus. Put your focus on the goals that both of you agreed on is of importance to you. Instead of focusing on the behaviors you don't like about your spouse, instead focus on the goals you're trying to achieve, which is in the number 3, successes. So I think it was you that asked, someone over here asked earlier about what do you do? Oh, I think it's Brian asked for the emergency fund. What do you do when you have to keep using it and whatever? Focus on successes. Same is true here. Find things that you guys have been successful with. And I'll oftentimes do that in a 6-month coaching session. It's not uncommon at all, where a couple will tell me in the very first follow-up session, I'll ask, the communication better, worse, or the same? Almost always they say better and the best it's ever been. But it's also not uncommon 3 months later, we'll get session 5 or 6, where maybe that month it wasn't so good. And they'll go, wow, if we can do this. They go, wait, stop. Remember just a couple months ago, you guys did it. We got right here. You guys did it. So focus on some of the successes. And then lastly, avoid pushing the buttons. You know the buttons to push to get everyone riled up. Just avoid those. Put on the adult pants. And by the way, I don't always do it. And create some boundaries, really, is what we're saying. So one of the rules my wife and I have that we follow most of the time, but not always, is anything important does not get discussed after 9 o'clock. Because one or both of us is not in a good place. And if we try to talk about serious conversations past 9, well, it can get kind of interesting. And so create boundaries that will work for you guys that fits within these barriers. And if you guys really have, any of you have a marriage or you know someone that's married and you're really struggling with about this and you've tried, hire a financial coach like myself or go get a pastor or a marriage counselor, get someone to help give you tools and be that middle ground, that referee person if you're really having a hard time getting on the same page. Which leads to bank accounts. And really these bank accounts are the same whether you're married or not married. You want at least 3 bank accounts. You want a primary checking account that where all the income goes in and all the expenses go out. As mentioned earlier, you want a separate account for your emergency fund and a separate account for your savings. If you're married, I highly recommend every bank account be joint unless there is very good reason, i.e., there has been what we call financial infidelity, where you've been you're spending out of control and whatever, or maybe there's a gambling addiction or been a past drug addiction or something like that. If there's something like that, That is why we need to maybe not have joint accounts. But if it's just, we tried joint accounts and it didn't work, I highly recommend joint accounts, because what will happen is, if you don't learn how to talk about money now, you'll have to talk about money later, and it won't go well. I had a client years ago who came to see me for that very reason. Been married around 40 years. The first 5 years, they tried the joint bank account thing, and it didn't go well. So they did the normal thing, which was have separate accounts. And I understand the logic, but here's what happened. They went 35 years with almost no real financial conversation because they knew they didn't do well. So they came to me going, we're trying to retire soon, and we got some big decisions we got to make. And sadly, because they waited 35 years to have these discussions, I didn't even get to finish the first session with them. I mean, it was reality TV right in front of me. They both got, I remember what you did back in 1995. Well, yeah, well, you in 2000. I mean, they were like in their face, standing up, spit flying. I'm like, whoa, time out. No, we're done. You guys need to see a marriage counselor now, ASAP, because they stuffed it just like this for 35 years. And when they finally tried to talk about it, just came out like this. It's not worth it. So have the hard conversations now. And if you don't know how to, or you're not comfortable, get a third party. Talk to Pastor Brian, or talk to someone here locally, or call me or somebody to help get you guys through that if that is you. You want to have joint bank accounts. And sadly, more and more marriages are starting without joint bank accounts. I read a study the other day in the weirdest places of all, Good Housekeeping magazine. I don't normally read a magazine like that, but it was just myself. I saw a magazine like, I was flipping through, and there happened to be a study on, do you keep your money together or separate? I'm like, interesting. 30% of married couples do not keep their finances together. Interesting. I don't know how correlating it is, but what is it, 40% of marriages end in divorce? Something like that? Kind of close. Some, depending on the study, some say more, some say less. The bottom line is, I think because really what we're saying out loud is about communicating and building trust. When there's communication and there's trust, then that's where we can move forward on that. Any questions on communicating as couples before we move on to singles? Okay.
What do you do if one spouse isn't on board with things? How do you foster, compromise, teamwork, without it being
When you're saying not on the same goal, is it because they just have two different goals, or just obstinance, I don't care, I don't want to be a part of it?
or even that idea is stupid, I don't care who's on it, I don't.
Okay.
I'm not saying back here. I might be the person.
Well, first off, another book I'd recommend, even though it's a business book, but I recommend it even in relationships, is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And a marriage is a team, right? And the first basic layer of a team, or you could say a marriage, is there has to be trust. If there's no trust, we can't go any further. So we've got to have a baseline of trust. And I would say this, if communication is stopped because there's a lack of trust, I would say there's a high degree of probability we've got to get a third party to have a conversation. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with that. My wife and I, we've had talks with other people before to bring us in. When you have to deal with the ex-spouse and their wife and all that, we've had talk about crazy, a marriage counselor and two couples and kids. Ugh, but I will tell you, it's worth it to talk it out. And so if it's in that line, I would say that. But if there is a level of trust that you have with each other, then we go to the next one in the five dysfunctions of a team, which is conflict. And conflict is not bad if done right. If conflict is done in a respectful manner, actually more will happen. And so that's why it's good to work on getting clear on goals. And one thing may be, if we're not clear on a goal, it's just we're disagreeing either because one spouse heard one thing or whatever else. It might mean that we go, hey, you know what? We've talked as much as we could talk about today. We're going to pick it back up in a week or pick it back up in a month. And it may take multiple conversations. I think sometimes what we think is we tried one conversation that didn't work. I don't know. Has anyone else just dated one person for one day and got married? If you did, I'm not picking on you, but I don't know. Many, and usually you go on multiple dates, right? Well, it's the same thing. It's going to take conversations. And so, again, give conversations, and it goes back to being humble. It goes back to being teachable and learning what's going to be our family way. You know, the Bible says in Genesis to leave and to cleave. And so we've got to somehow find a way to make it our way and not disregard how we grew up, not disregard people that gave us wisdom as we grew up, but what's going to be our way of life together. That's what we want to do. Other questions on marriage and money and communication? Okay, did you hear a question? Oh. Singles and money. Let's talk about that. We talked about accountability partners earlier, and I recommend getting accountability partner, to hold us accountable to our goals. And there are some character qualities you are looking for when it comes to an accountability partner. Number one, it needs to be someone that is trustworthy and you can have a trusting, confidential relationship with. And recommended also that you have similar values. So for instance, if you're wanting to get out of credit card debt and you like the Dave Ramsey model of cutting up credit cards, I don't recommend your accountability partner having 7 credit cards. You're probably never going to get rid of it. So find accountability. Don't have exact values, but do they have similar values that you do? And you want to give them permission to push you. Now it says gently on the screen, but I recommend having a conversation of what level do you want pushed. So that's the very first question I ask my clients when they come into my office for when they say yes to hiring me as their coach. I will ask on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is soft and laid back and 10 is direct and firm, I don't yell and swear, I charge extra to do that. We're on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 just being direct and firm, 1 being soft, but we're still going to get you to the accountability you need. Where do you want? And I recommend having that conversation, whoever you're going to have holding you accountable, because some people do want to cut the stories, cut the fluff, get right to the point. Other people will curl up into a ball and go, no, get me there gently, but get me there in steps. So have that conversation of how much you want pushed in a certain area. And then lastly, celebrate successes. Yes, your accountability partner is going to tell you you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. But a good accountability partner should be high-fiving you and way to go. You need that encouragement. I'll never forget, years ago, I had a single mom at the time, she's now remarried, had a couple of kids, and she told me when she hired me, Justin, I have a shopping problem. I buy every day something where I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, where I'm in a need or a want. I am buying stuff every day. I know I've got to stop that habit if I want to be able to get out of debt and build some wealth. And I said, well, I'll be your accountability partner until you find somebody. And she said, great. 2 weeks into our coaching relationship, she gives me a call. Justin, I've had a bad day and I got to shop. But you'll be proud of me. I'm at least going to go shopping for clothing, and I'm going to use the clothing budget that we talked about. I said, okay, that's good. Remind me how much is in your clothing budget? And she said, $40. And I said, great, where are you going to go buy the clothes? And she goes, the mall. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, last time I was at a mall, I think you could buy 1 shirt for $40, and that's on sale. She said kids and clothes. And I said, ma'am, I think, you know what, I think you should. You saved the $40, good job, get clothes. But can I encourage you to go shopping somewhere else? I want to encourage you to go to a thrift store, like a Goodwill. I didn't finish the word will. And she's like, I said words you can't say in church. I hung up the phone. I'm like, wow, I just recommended a thrift store. I didn't say sell your kid. 2 hours later, she calls me. You could tell her tone had changed. As Zig Ziglar said, you could tell she was grinning so wide you could put a banana in sideways. She was so excited. And she's like, Justin, I just left Goodwill and I bought enough clothes for all my kids for the whole fall. I have money left over. Thank you. I'm so sorry for yelling and hanging up for you, but thank you so much for keeping me on track. Sometimes we just need that one little conversation. But I knew how I could push her. Of course, she hung up on me. But it was for her own good, and she knew that. She really wasn't mad at me. She's probably more mad at herself. That why am I having to go to a thrift store? by the way, there's really good deals at thrift stores. Oh my goodness. I know some people I got to go, can you dial it back a little bit because you're buying a little too much. So thrift stores are a good place to go. Now, when you're single, again, same thing. You want your own accounts, but do not join them with anyone. Now, difference I would say here, for example, if you're 18, we got an 18-year-old daughter, we're still on her accounts right this second. But when she's on her own, and if she's still single, great. What I don't recommend is having joint bank accounts with people you're not married to. I am not an attorney, and if anyone's in here, I hope if they are an attorney, let me know if I'm right on this, but I know I am. And the reason why you don't want to have joint bank accounts, number one, spiritually, it does not even make sense, but legally, if you separate before getting married, what ends up happening is you have dissolved a partnership. Problem. I don't know any dating relationship that says, hey, you know what, we should get an operating agreement. I don't know anyone that does that. So if you are living with someone, or if you're whatever, and you have bank accounts but you're not married, and you split and you go splitsies, it is a nightmare to untangle. So if you're single, please keep those to yourself. And then when you get married and you come back from your honeymoon, one of your first kind of adulting things as a new couple, go pick a bank or credit union or multiple ones and get everything again joint. 4 questions to ask before marriage, or really a better way of saying it, is 4 things you need to be aligned on. Studies say there's a high 90% probability that your marriage is going to be successful if these 4 things are in alignment. First, religion. Do we have the same religious beliefs and background? Do we have the same thing there? Obviously, today we're talking about money. Where do we stand? Are we on the same page? Now, one of the things may happen is maybe as a single person, you did a really good job of staying out of debt and whatever, and then you're dating someone with debt. That doesn't bother me as long as if they're on a trajectory of no more borrowing. But if you guys go, hey, my kid's going to college, I don't care how many student loan debt they get, college is that important to me, they're going to go there, and you're going, listen, I like college, but I would never borrow money, that's a conversation. Not saying not to get married, at least yet, but there's conversations to be had. So be on the same page about money. In-laws, are we on the same page when it comes to boundaries? And children, how many do we want? Are we on the same page with the number of children? How are we going to raise our children? If you can be in alignment on those 4 things, obviously with being born-again believers at the top, you have a high degree successful chance of marriage. Doesn't mean you're going to have your moments. We all have our good seasons and our bad seasons, but those are the 4 things if you're single and you're looking at marriage there. Any questions about singles and money? Going once, going twice. Let's talk about kids and money. How many of you have kids 18 or younger right now? Okay. A great book I'd recommend reading, Dave Ramsey's book with his daughter, Smart Money, Smart Kids. This goes basically from crib to graduate, how to teach your kids about money. And by the way, I have 1 copy of this book, so if anyone wants it, let me know. I'm happy to give it away today. These are a couple of these, so I'll move over here. This is our oldest when he was 17, when he bought his first car. This is our now 18-year-old with a little chore chart. And then these are past clients' kids. Kids are hungry. They want to learn about money, especially if they're in a home that either A, didn't have any, or B, there's a lot of fights around it. So they're going to want to know how money really works. And there's really 3 main principles we want to teach our kids. And you could add a 4th if you wanted, but at least 3. When it comes to money, we want to teach them how to give, how to save, and how to spend. You could add invest in terms of helping them learn about it and do those kind of things, but really the 3 main ones are give, save, and spend. And we're going to break down things into age-appropriate buckets. I mean, if they're 6 months old, we're probably not having a budget conversation, right? So let's talk about when they're 5 and under. This could be like preschool age or even kindergarten age. Just once in a while, give them some small chores to do. Maybe clean their room, or put laundry in the laundry basket. Find something to do that way. And then give them $1 or a quarter. Give them some money so they can begin to equate work equals money. Okay? Now, unlike Dave Ramsey on this, that doesn't mean everything is a paid-for job. Putting your dishes in the dishwasher doesn't get you $1. Brushing your teeth is not a making money event. But we can begin to have those little things. And pay cash right away. And I recommend a big, clear container. Have you ever seen the ones at Walmart? It's like cheese balls, like this big thing, whatever. I always wanted to get one, but I was afraid I'd eat them all. I wouldn't feel good afterwards. And so get something like that that's big and it's clear, and have them put money in it. And then once in a while, take them to a toy store. Take them somewhere. Just have some fun with the money. Then between the ages of 6 and 13, begin to pay commission. We do the cash system in a home. We use envelopes, and each of our kids get 3 envelopes, a giving, a spending, and a saving. Now, they're not going to get tons of money out of this, but we've done it different ways, where each towards $1. We've done your age, and we've done whatever. Really, at the end of the day, it's about paying them for doing some jobs. And so what we do is we show them, okay, you have give, save, and spend. And so at a minimum, you're going to give 10%. And if you want to give more, you can. Then we're going to put some in saving, and we're going to put some in spending. And the saving can be for a goal. Typically, I recommend for the goal to be bigger than something they can earn in one or two commission cycles. So our daughter, who you saw earlier, she was saving when she was younger for a ripstick, kind of this weird skateboardy thing. Well, that was going to take several cycles to get to. Our 13-year-old now, he already had a job cleaning the office where I go. I run an office, and they allow him to clean. He made so much money, he bought himself a $600 telescope. And I'm like, I could just never see myself spend. I almost even wondered, should we even allow him to spend that? But I mean, the pictures it could take of the moon and planets, and he's just all giddy. But he got a chance to earn that money while giving to the church and while having some spending money. And boy, does he burn through that spending money. Like, wow. By the way, when you have multiple kids, you're going to have fun seeing various money personalities. Ooh-wee. Our oldest was a saver, except eating out. We got his first checking account, and I didn't know a debit card could go to Chipotle so many times in a month of my life. Holy cow. So we had to have a conversation how cash works over the debit card. I'll find a story about that in a minute. Then we have some natural spenders, like our youngest. I mean, the moment he gets paid, he is just buying everything in sight. It's like, okay. And then he has no money and wonders what to do. So we have that conversation. And you also get to work on them talking about fairness and what happens with that, because why are they getting paid and this getting paid? Now, we had it interesting with the blended household. So we went by weekly chores. And our second oldest, Jada, she'll be 22 in a couple months. And I'll never forget, she came home. This is not fair. I go, what's not fair? Well, he's here all 4 weeks. I'm only here 2. I don't get to earn as much as him. I'm trying to think, wow, how do I parent through that one? And I don't know if I did the right thing, but I just gently told my daughter, I go, you know what, you're right. It's not fair, and I'm sorry. I'd rather you learn this now, but life's not fair either. And life's going to be, and you've got to learn to overcome it. Oh boy, she did enough chores. She made way more money than he did the next time. So life lessons going to come up along the way with this. And by the way, your kids are watching. And that goes into the last, live by example. If there's nothing else at all, is live by example. Yes, have conversations with your kids, especially at 6 to 13. They are watching everything you do. And it's kind of scary when they get older and you see them verbally sound like you. They go, ooh, do I sound like, oh. I mean, they're good little mirrors sometimes, right? And so, and I forgot to tell you this fun little story that kind of goes with this. So one of the things we used to do while getting out of debt, the kids got a choice. You got $50 towards a gift, or we'll take the family. This is back pre-pandemic when you could go out to eat for $50. Pick which one. And our daughter, who I talked about earlier, Julia, who's 18, she wanted to go to our famous in Ames Hickory Park. Here we go, make sure you get a chance to go there. And we go to Hickory Park, you get the free birthday song and all that. And I mean, I am trying to do all this mental gymnastics, and I added it all up. I'm like, okay, you can have whatever you want, but if the kids' meal's here, everyone gets water, no appetizers, I could get this in $50. My daughter, being the daughter that she is, she goes, Dad, can we get cheese balls? I really want to get cheese balls. It's my birthday. I did not figure that into the $50 equation, and I knew there was no way that was going to happen. So I'm going, who is not eating? Because it's my daughter's birthday. I want to get her cheese balls. And I went, I don't have it. So I had to tell my daughter on her birthday, no. The cheese balls. And by the way, they're the best cheese balls. If you got a gluten allergy, it's worth getting sick. That's how good they are. And she's like, but Dad, it's my birthday. And I go, no, sorry, honey. You know what? She's never needed counseling over that. I might need counseling over it, but she didn't need counseling over it. But she remembers that. Fast forward years later, we're doing better now. We're out of debt or close to out of debt. At the time, I'm teaching this class. And I happened to mention that, and she always liked to follow me around when I would speak. And she heard me tell the story, and she had forgotten about it. But she's a witty teenager then. She goes, you owe me cheese balls. You got money now. So we went to cheese. We literally went from just her and I drove home, and that's all we did. We went on a cheese ball date. Thankfully, like a few weeks later, we found out she had a gluten allergy. So okay, well, we're done. But anyway, but she remembers that, but she saw us say in her 18 years, she has saw us say yes, and she has saw us say no. She has seen my wife and I, her mom and I, get in fights about money, and she's seen us come in agreement. The bottom line is they're watching. They're watching. So live by example. Now, when they get older, 14 to 18, by then they should have a checking and savings account, especially at 16. And I would get them a debit card. I would not get them a credit card. Don't even get me started. My 18-year-old has gotten 2 credit card offers from Discover in the last month saying you need to build your credit, which you're going to see my lovely ability, how I feel about that in about an hour. Don't feel really good about that. But oh my goodness, they need to get a checking account and a savings account to begin learning how that works and teaching them how to use debit card. And one of the things that we do at our house at 16 is you will have a job, even if it's 5 hours a week. It doesn't have to be much, but just have some kind of job. So thankfully, all my kids, as of a few weeks ago, are employed. It feels great. And I have them have a budget. I have a little modified budget, and they learn how to budget. And so we walk them through. And what's really interesting is you're going to learn, that's how I learned about my son overusing the debit card. So we had the conversation of debit card and cash and how that works. But you know what's cool? My almost 22-year-old, her envelopes, I'm afraid she needs to open a bank. Because she's got money coming from every direction, and all she does is work at Hickory Park. She is working right now as behind the scenes in the kitchen, and she's got more money than most 21-year-olds do. Just by her learning how to budget. I got a text last night. I got it right before I left the parking lot. I'm thinking about opening up a different bank account. What kind of bank account should I get to get the best interest rate? Because I got some money now. This is fun. So you're going to get those conversations in there. So do a simple budget. One of the things I also do with my kids is when they're 15 years old, I will show them our budget. I'll take the income off and show them one time what we go through. Talk about an eye-opening experience. Our oldest, I'll never forget, when he saw the mortgage, he's like, there's a comma there. Yeah. Then he saw the utility bill. Really? I go, that's why we say shut the door. So the conversations you get to have are great. And they get to learn these things. And so when I get home, one of the first things I get to do, my 16-year-old, you've heard me talk about, some of you guys have heard me talk about her. She just got her first job at Crumble Cookie. I didn't know you could charge that much for a cookie. They make Starbucks so cheap. But she is enjoying that, and she just got her first paycheck. So guess what we get to learn this week? She's going to get to do her first budget. And then again, continue to live by example. Now, instead of the baby steps, when you're a teenager, we recommend the 5 foundations. Again, you can find them in the book, Smart Money, Smart Kids. The first one is a $500 emergency fund. So all of our kids right now have a $500 emergency fund. And we've told them, we buy you the first phone, the next phone's on you. So you break it, I guess, there you got to use your emergency fund. And usually most kids don't have to use their emergency fund, thankfully. If you're in debt as a teenager, most aren't, but some are, get out of debt as soon as you can. Pay cash for a car. If you're doing okay financially, consider doing what I've done, and that is do a matching plan. So all of our kids know that we will match you up to X dollars for your first car. So that way they have to pay for some, and we'll help out a little bit. Interesting story, though. I heard about this when we were neck deep in debt. And our oldest, that 17-year-old at the time that had that car, it was a $900 car. As Larry Wingate used to say, we were so broke we couldn't pay attention. I really wanted, my wife and I both really wanted to help our son get a car. It's been $450. That's all it would have been. We didn't have it. But we live by principle, we don't borrow money. And so we had to tell our son, listen, because of our poor choices, we're not going to be able to help you buy a car like we want to. We're probably not going to help you with the first set of college expenses should you want to go to college. And we're really sorry. And he was like, okay. But for my wife and I, we felt horrible because we wanted to help him out. Funny how God makes things work out sometimes. He's now married, and before they had our first grandbaby, they were having some car trouble. And by the way, he's got a great job, he's doing well, but they kept having car troubles over and over again. And I happened to have a good month and had a little bit of bonus money. And I remember just sitting at home going, we didn't get a chance to help him with the car. How about we go surprise him and help him fix the car? Told my wife that she loved the idea. So we live on the south side, they live on the north side, so we get up to where they live, and we said, hey, we're in the area, can we just drop by, say hello? Sure. Had a conversation, and after a few to-dos, said, hey, you know what, guys? Jacob, do you remember when you bought your first car, how we really wanted to help you and couldn't? He's like, yeah, I kind of do. I go, well, I hear you guys keep having car repairs, and here's the money that would have went to your first car. Our daughter-in-law just had tears going down her eyes. I knew God would take care of us. I go, it won't always be from us. So even when you can't do those kind of things while you're trying to get out of debt, and it ain't easy. There's things we've had to say no to our kids on that we really wanted to say yes. But it's been fun watching our kids grow up and how they're making choices. But a lot of it is just that intentionality that John Maxwell talks about. And then pay cash for college. Only 54% of Americans graduate with a bachelor degree in 6 years, meaning 46% either take longer or quit. My wife and I fit that. My wife was a single mom, took her 7 years to get her bachelor degree in art that she's never used, that I paid for. Sorry, not bitter. And then I only have a private business school degree that's an associate degree. I went for my bachelor's and I quit. Student loan companies don't care. They want their money. And our 18-year-old right now is going to junior college. Scholarships. They do work. Apply for scholarships. Apply for a lot of them. But she's got some scholarships, and her first year is going to be paid for via scholarships. So do that. And then lastly, build wealth and give. So again, children are hungry. They are eager to learn. Now, we're 11:35. And I want to take a minute to answer any questions in regards to kids and money before we go down to lunch and hear from our panel. And by the way, any of you kids, I love it. You're my favorite. You're here. Awesome. Please learn from this. This is great. And then Nathan, you're good. George Camel. If you know George Camel, man, you're already in. You're doing good. But either kids, if you've got questions, or anyone else about how to teach your kids about money.
You're working through baby steps, and you have kids, how do you build it into the budget to do some of these things with the kids?
Great. So like in my spreadsheet, I have built in commissions. So we have a kids line item, and we have a kids section, and one line item is commission, one is actually for sports and activities. By the way, if you've got kids, figure out how much you spend, whether it's 4-H, church camp, basketball, cleats, the whole 9 yards. Kind of get a sense, how much do you spend on when you travel, especially if you do the travel team. We did that for a little while. Holy cow, that's but whatever you're going to do, add all that up. What do you spend in a year and divide that by 12? You'll be thankful you did. And you also might go, wait a minute, this is a little much. When you add all up per kid, you start going, wow. So we have a line item for commissions. We have a line item for school supplies. So whether we homeschool, and we know every year you got to buy that, but even if you don't homeschool, if you do public school, there's registration, there's a trapper keeper, there's the pencils, the papers, the lunch pails, the whole 9 yards. And so what I see a lot of moms between now and school that are not in good moods. And it's because we got registration and we got all this stuff, and they're the ones getting the pencils and the clothes and all that kind of stuff. So usually $200, $300, $400 for school supplies work. So put $30, $40 a month in we have a school supplies envelope. Thankfully, we had one graduate, so we got to reduce it. I'm like, yes. And when we found out we were expecting our grandbaby, we started a grandkid envelope. Oh, that's fun. So, but commissions, to go to your point.
So describe this idea of commissions.
Yes. So commissions, what that is, if I didn't do a good job explaining that earlier, is commissions is about you work, you get paid. When I was growing up, I don't know if you guys had this, I had an allowance, which was, here's money. Okay. And so the whole idea behind commissions is that you are getting you're getting paid for doing little chores at home. And we added a step that Dave doesn't talk about. You don't have to do this. We said there had to be quality in your work. And if you don't have quality, you're not getting paid for that chore. We don't have to. It's just something that we threw in there for funsies. And it seems to have worked. And we have a commission envelope that we put money in the commission envelope, and then when it's payday, then we pay the kids. Our biggest, if I were to say, here's our hang up, and I feel good because it was Dave Ramsey's hang up too, so I'm in good company. You get busy with life and the commission envelope gets thick. Oh, wait, we're supposed to pay the kids. Whoops. So make sure you're paying the kids. That's something, if I could do it over again, I wish it would have been a little more timely. But when they need money, they'll find you going, hey, it's been a while. We need commission money. Oh, yeah, we got that. So good question.
I don't know how to phrase this, but your children have, they earn their commission, and then you have them tithe and give to friends for whatever, and then they're spending money. How do you teach them wise spending choices? Do you allow them to just make those poor decisions and learn from mistakes? I don't know, I'm often like, don't buy that, it's a bad choice. And I'm making the choices for them.
It's not easy, and there's a tension. Because I think where we can go into the proverbial two ditches where we let them always make mistakes or we always cover for them. And so I try to balance it. So sometimes we'll let them spend it so they can feel that we don't have it. But other times we'll encourage them, hey, I wouldn't do that, but we'll let you make the call. Yeah. Now, one thing as an example, what we'll do for fun is eating out. So when we eat out, all of our kids love it when we can get appetizers. Sometimes we have enough money in the eating out envelope for appetizers. Sometimes we don't. And so if we do, we buy them. If not, we go, hey guys, it's on you for appetizers and desserts. We've got the entree. And all of a sudden, just they scatter and they go get their spending envelope, and they seem to, everyone's cool with it. In fact, with one little fun fact I didn't think would happen was when they would bring their own, they got creative. Hey, if you buy the cheese balls, I'll go buy this one, and then we can share. And it's like, cool. And so again, fun little conversations happen that way. So it's kind of a mix of that. I don't think it's one or the other on that. But yes, you do want to walk them through like, hey. And so like with our son with the big telescope purchase, and I almost nixed it. I'm like, that's a lot of money for a telescope. And he already had a smaller one and all this. And I said, okay, I'm going to teach you a thing. I didn't know I was going to teach a 13-year-old this, but it was opportunity costs. You have $600. You've saved it. It's for spending. Awesome. What else would you like to buy that costs that much? Or multiple things that would reach that amount? And we had a really good conversation of other things. I go, now, of the list of things you rattled off, if you could only have one of those, which would you have? I think I want the telescope. And I was really worried when he got it. Two things. One, is this thing going to break? Because, the thing is like, I think we're looking at Mars like we're like right up and close. The thing's huge. And it hasn't broke, at least since I left. And the other thing I was worried about is you're going to spend $600 and you're going to use it twice, see the moon and be bored. He's out there multiple times a week seeing the same moon. And it's like the first time he saw it. I'm like, so every week I have been feeling better and better. I'm like, well, okay. But I wasn't planning on it. But it became a conversation of opportunity cost. To go, is this the best way? Or is there something more expensive you want, maybe $1,000 or more, that you can hang on to it and save a little bit more? And so you'll find that there will be moments of teachability that you kind of set up yourself, and then there'll be moments of opportunity that just kind of land in your lap. Like I wasn't expecting that. We just kind of went with it. So hope that answers your question. The time is now 11:41. Sorry, guys, we're a little behind schedule. Is the next goal to go downstairs and we'll pray? Or pray here and then go downstairs?
Let's pray here.
Okay.
Father, thank you so much for all the information that we've been able to have so far. We pray that we would mull over it, meditate on it, think about it, and then implement it. Lord, we thank you for the food downstairs. Thank you so much for all the people who have been working hard to set up the conference and have made the food and prepared it downstairs. We pray that you would give us strength from it, that we would eat with thankfulness, and that you would continue to let us glorify you as we go through this conference. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.